Kahalo Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakahak Radash. Double honors to the other apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone who were well for teaching his word in truth and sincerity. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect scattered abroad, and peace and salutations to the sincere Akim that's pushing his word in truth and sincerity. To USA Shalom. Salakia. Earlier today, in politics, the Strait of Hormuz will be open for commercial shipping. Commercial ships, to sail through. That's as of 9 a.m. this morning. Yeah, the report came in a little earlier, but this particular article came out about 9. I heard it on the radio somewhere around 8 o'clock. But the title reads, Iran declares Strait of Hormuz open to shipping. Trump says U.S. blockade still active. There's 3 bullet points here, key points that they mentioned. The first one is Iran declared Strait of Hormuz open to all commercial ships during the 10-day ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon. Second key point. However, vessels must transit through a coordinated route announced by Iran's maritime authorities, Iran's foreign minister said. Last key point. President Donald Trump thanked Tehran for opening the strait, but said the U.S. blockade of Iran's ports remains in effect. So the article goes on to say, Iran on Friday declared the Straits of Hormuz completely open to commercial traffic during the ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon. In line with the ceasefire in Lebanon, the passage for all commercial vessels through Straits of Hormuz is declared completely open for the remaining period of the ceasefire. Foreign Minister, Saeed Bash Arakchi said in a social media post. However, vessels must transit through a coordinated route announced by Iran's maritime authorities, Arakchi said. It is unclear whether Tehran will force ships to pay a toll to pass the strait. Israel and Lebanon agreed Thursday to a 10-day ceasefire starting at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. That evening, Israel's military campaign in Lebanon against the militant group Hezbollah, who are close allies of Iran, has been a sticking point in negotiations between Washington and Tehran. President Donald Trump on Friday thanked Iran for opening the strait in a social media post, but Trump said the U.S. naval blockade of Iran's ports will remain in effect until an agreement is reached with Tehran. Oil prices plunged about 10% to below $90 per barrel. About a fifth of the world's crude supply passed through the strait before the war. The closure of the sea lane, which connects the Persian Gulf to the global energy markets, has triggered the biggest oil supply disruption in history. Trump agreed to a 2-week ceasefire on April 7th in exchange for Iran completely opening the Strait, but Iran's parliamentary speaker, Mohammed Bagher, Ghalibaf, accused the U.S. of violating the agreement by allowing Israel to continue its campaign in Lebanon. The Strait has remained almost completely closed during the U.S.-Iran ceasefire as the two countries disputed the terms of the agreement. Just a few commercial vessels are transiting the waterway daily. Well, we all know that if you're talking about these small hats, and if you're relying on them to be honest and upright, and holding to their word, then you can forget about there being any ceasefire, for a long period of time. Because the MO, man, the MO is to straight up deceive you and then do the exact opposite. They'll say yes, and then all of a sudden they'll turn around and do exactly what they said they wouldn't do. So we already know that these people are scumbags, man. We know they're wicked, and we know they don't hold fast to their word. If they say they're gonna do something, they pretty much are gonna flop. Unless they talking about bombing the shit out of you, trying to make your place of residence a damn wasteland, then they're pretty much on the up and up. But if they talking about peace and all this other anything else, man, they pretty much full of shit. They not about peace. They about mayhem and destruction. This is Psalms 52:2. Thy tongue deceiveth mischiefs, like a sharp razor working deceitfully. And that's Amalek. That's Esau, period. That's the whole Edomite nation, man. The Edomites, that's what they do. They tongue deviseth wicked mischiefs, and their workings are deceitful. So they say one thing and they'll turn around and do something else. They'll lie to you just to create a narrative of pleasantries and things of that nature when all hell is breaking loose on the other side. That's exactly what Nero did the whole time in the beginning of this conflict. He was talking crazy. Oh, we're winning the battle, we're winning this war. But all the time, but the whole while, Iran was just tearing up all your military bases out there, and in that region. So we're blowing up all their ships. They've been dismantled. They've been completely obliterated. But yet they still firing on all over the place. Israel and all those different bases you have, scattered around in that region. So you can't believe nothing these people say, man. Let's see. This is Psalms 11, and read verse 5. The Lord Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, triumph the righteous, but the wicked and him that loveth violence his soul hateth. So that's self-explanatory, man. The Lord ain't with the shenanigans, man. Especially the shenanigans of an Edomite and these different heathen nations. I have a second article, but before I go there, I'll read verse 6. This is Psalms 11, and this is verse 6. Upon the wicked he shall rain snares, fire and brimstone, and an horrible tempest. This shall be the portion of their cup. So, all the things that they reaped upon the earth, man, their rape, robbery, and their murder, their sacrifices of babies and eating of flesh, eating people. They're gonna be rewarded double their cup, man. They're gonna, all the things that they've done to people, man. All their wickedness, man, is gonna fall upon them. So that's why the Lord said he's gonna come back, he's gonna destroy Babylon. And he's gonna put these Edomites in captivity along with them heathen nations, man. But this is another article that I came upon today. And this one is about the Straits of Malacca. As of April 2026, the Strait of Malacca is experiencing heightened geopolitical tension, largely as a spillover effect from the conflict in the Straits of Hormuz, following a new defense pact between the United States and Indonesia. The vital shipping lane, which handles roughly 30 to 40% of global trade and over 80% of China's energy imports, is becoming a focal point for intense superpower competition. This is exactly what I was talking about just a minute ago. You can't trust these people, So while they're pushing a whole agenda to keep you focused on the Straits of Hormuz, these wicked individuals are trying to cut a deal behind closed doors to push, pretty much it sounds like they push China out, you know what I'm saying, or have China in some type of turmoil. Here is what is currently happening. U.S.-Indonesian Defense Pact. The United States has signed a deal with Indonesia granting its military aircraft expanded access to Indonesian airspace. While framed as a defense cooperation initiative, this is widely viewed as a move to increase U.S. surveillance and operational capability, over the strait, aiming to manage or potentially restrict geopolitical power play. Malacca dilemma. China is heavily reliant on this route for energy, a strategic vulnerability it calls the Malacca dilemma. The increased U.S. presence is placing intense pressure on this Achilles heel of China's supply chain. Hamas spillover. With the U.S. having implemented the blockade of the Straits of Hormuz in the Middle East, so-called Middle East, regional players are worried that the Malacca Strait could be the next weaponized maritime choke point. Regional perspectives Let's see. Indonesia is managing a delicate balance, emphasizing its commitment to a free and active foreign policy and sovereignty while benefiting from the defense modernization under the new U.S. pact. Malaysia is concerned about losing its strategic ambiguity and falling into a gray zone of conflict between U.S. and Chinese interests. Yeah, so Indonesia is cutting backdoor deals with Babylon. You know, that's not gonna fare well. Like, it's already, just dealing with Babylon on those on any type of level. It don't fare well for the ones that are not, capable of defending themselves completely. If you need to rely on somebody else, then, you're pretty much gonna you're gonna get pushed out, man. You asked out, man. Eventually, they're gonna sun you. Basically, they are just gonna mush you, and they're gonna take what you got, and they're gonna claim it for themselves. That's just their MO. This is Singapore. Singapore maintains that passage through the Strait is a right for all ships, not a privilege, and has strongly opposed paying tolls or negotiating for safe passage, worrying that such concessions elsewhere set a dangerous precedent. Security concerns, despite successful joint patrols by regional states, there has been a reported resurgence in incidences of piracy and robbery in the Singapore and Malacca Strait in 2024 and 2025, with criminals exploiting the heavy traffic. Why is the Strait of Malacca matters? Why the Strait of Malacca matters right now? This is the shortest route connecting the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean via the South Chinese Sea. Over 80,000 vessels pass through it annually, carrying over 20 million barrels of oil per day, making it the busiest and most critical choke point for Asian economies. So what it's looking like is that, Babylon and, them tiny tops, man, they look like they plotting against China. And that's not gonna fare well, you're gonna have to deal with the BRICS at that, when all said and done, and if they need help, when they call for help, you're gonna have to deal with those BRIC nations, and those BRIC nations ain't dealing with you. So they not trying to hear nothing you got to say. So, you could try to talk peacefully and, try to smooth talk them, but that shit ain't gonna work. This is Psalms 55:21. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. The words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. So, all they're gonna do is try to, talk to you all nice. So like, they're gonna try to talk to you all nice. Wow. They trying to creep in through the back door, They trying to rob you, They trying to murder you. They're pretty much they're gonna try to take what you got. They're gonna try to kill off your leaders. They're gonna put in their own, goofy leaders who pretty much will be yes men to them, and then they're just gonna rape and rob everything that you have. They're gonna rape and pillage, your natural resources. And then they'll claim it all for themselves and give you just a piece to live on, That's just how they move. That's their MO. That's how they've always moved. You know, they sneaky, slimy, grimy. That's an Edomite, man. That's these top level Edomites. You know, beginning with the head, Amalek. You know, those top banking families. Who got their fingers all involved in this, man. Them Rothschilds got their fingers all, you know what I'm saying, got their dirty mitts all over it, you know. But the Lord said he's gonna destroy these people, man. He's gonna take them out. He's gonna destroy Babylon. He's gonna purify our land. He's gonna put them in captivity, and then we'll be able to rule in righteousness, man. Living underneath a righteous banner, a righteous government. This is Ecclesiasticus, Sirach 12:10. Never trust thine enemies, or never trust thine enemy, for like an iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Verse 11. It's like though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him, and thou shalt be unto him as if he had us wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust have not been altogether wiped away. So you never trust your enemies, man. That's on either side of the gate, whether you talking about your true biblical Israelites, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, or you talk about one of these heathen nations, man. Heathen nations shouldn't be trusting them. We shouldn't be trusting them, nor them heathen nations. Never trust thy enemy. So, they're gonna speak to you smooth things, man. They're gonna try to talk to you all nice. They're gonna come to you all humbled and friendly. That's what they did, That's what they did to the northern tribes when they came over here. Came over here all, like they wanted peace, but all the while they know who they were and they wanted to conquer them. That's all they, that's all these people are set up to do, man. That's their blessing. The blessing is the sword, These people are designed to be liars, rapists, murderers, connivers, thieves. That's how they set up, man. Spiritually, that's how they're set up. So you can't trust them, man. Even when it looks like, even when the coast looks clear, they somewhere lurking. And they're really gonna have their hands full, man, dealing with China, man. They think they're just gonna roll over China, man. That ain't gonna happen, man. China already said that they're not with the bullying tactics, So at some point in time, China has already, in recent time, they have already, quote unquote, showed, pretty much, they ain't showed their hand, but they showed a couple of cards, They was over here buying up property. They was over here doing a whole lot, man. You know what I'm saying? Like they have certain electronics that they banned here in Babylon because, quote unquote, they had a surveillance technology that would, pretty much would give that intel back to to Moab's government, man. So China ain't no punk, And they have the backing, and they have a nice backing, So this leads right up until, that verse in Revelation where the beast is starting to hate the whore, man. This is Joel 1:15. Alas, for the day of the Lord Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai is at hand. And as a destruction from the Almighty shall it come. So, all these things are being set up by the Most High. We're watching the Most High perform, his wondrous works. We're witnessing the things that the Lord spoke into existence, back during the foundation of the earth. When all these things, when all these things that we see, all these marvels that we see were created, all this here was already planned out. Man's going is of the Lord. So you're not doing anything on your own accord. You can't sit here and say, I'm working on free will. Ain't no such thing, man. The Lord directed your path. So you're gonna do exactly what he put on you. Whatever he put in your head, that's exactly what you're gonna do. So he got these people going through it, man. He got them lying to each other. He got them scheming and scamming and perpetrating a fraud on each other. So it's real ill to watch. It's a beautiful thing to watch because we know that this place is through, man. Like Apostle Bar said, this place is circling the drain, man. So, we watching the fall of Babylon coming up on that 250th year. And hopefully the Lord, push this thing a little bit faster. But, it is what it is, man. You just gotta keep doing the work. Keep watching these clowns, pretty much trip over their own tongues. Watch them make the silliest moves and, watch them insult, embarrass, infiltrate, and destroy one another, Because that's exactly what they're doing, man. Pretty much taking each other out. But, when the Lord comes back to, set things right, that's when you're going to see that ultimate culling, that great culling of the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. This is 2nd Ezra 16 and 21. Behold, the victuals shall be so good, cheap upon the earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case. And even then shall evils grow upon the earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. So Babylon didn't even get half of they didn't get a decent portion of their the oil from that Straits of Hormuz, man. It's all about control and power and abiding in what these silly small hat clowns want. The imposters in the land, pretty much sock puppets for Amalek, the head of the Edomites. So all the while they get their word, they get their direction from those wicked elite bankers. Those are the ones that control everything that goes on. Wherever there's a central bank, there's a small hat there. A greasy, grimy small hat there. Pushing legislation, pushing laws, pushing policies. So these people are only doing what they're set up to do. They only do what they told to do from top wicked banking families, and then ultimately from the will of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. So people gonna think it's gonna we gonna go back to them old days. It's gonna get good. It's gonna be good for a little while, man. But that's gonna be the deception, man. It's gonna have you drop your guard. Them eggs, that bread, that beer, all that shit y'all like is just gonna drop. That pork, all them prices gonna drop. Gas gonna drop. But they didn't have. But the funny thing is, they wasn't getting their oil reserves. So from the Straits of Hormuz. So and whatever portion if they were getting it from there, it wasn't that wasn't our supply chain. So the gas things like that went up, man, just because, man, they are playing a game. They're playing a wicked, evil, silly game, and the people actually don't see it. So they're gonna drop them prices, and everything gonna seem like it's back to normal. But just rest assured, man, greater confusion is on the way, along with that famine, and along with that sword, because they want to implement their digital system, man. So it's all about implementing that MOTB, and anything to keep your mind disoriented, focused on the wrong things, and then if they hit the right button, you'll beg for the MOTB. The same way you beg for that Patriot Act after them silly buildings fell. And it's all on the guise of security. So you're gonna think that everything is good, everything is all peaceful, hunky dory, and then they're gonna drop the hammer on you. All the while, these other nations, man, they starting to see Babylon for who she really is, man. She's a filthy little stink whore, man. Grimy little whore, and being pimped out by those imposters in the land. This is Revelation 17:16, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Those 10 horns are represented by the NATO and EU nations. That's NATO and the EU, and that beast is, that's the second leg of this Roman Empire, man. That's this beast system. That's this system they're under. And that nasty, filthy little whore, man, that's Babylon. And these nations are getting tired of dealing with this whore, man, because she'll sleep around with anybody, man, and do all sorts of filthiness just to get her way. You know what I'm saying? So these nations are really looking at Babylon with disgust, man, to the point where nobody even wanted to help help Babylon trying to achieve whatever goal they were trying to that they were trying to achieve over there in the Straits of Hormuz. They wasn't trying to aid them in any fashion. They wouldn't let them land their planes there. They wasn't trying to give them no leeway. You know what I'm saying? They were trying to give them no aid at all. So that's the beginning, man. That's just the beginning of these different nations, man. Been like pretty much saying F you, man. We not about that nonsense you with. And the funny thing is, man, this is you're watching Esau versus Esau. Esau hating Esau. So you watching Edomites hate Edomites, and mixed with all these different heathen nations. So it's very interesting to watch, man. It's interesting to watch because you already know that this thing is at its end, man. It can't take much more of this, But it's a beautiful thing to watch, man. We watching the Lord work. And this thing's about to fall, it's about to collapse. And a righteous kingdom will be governed here on earth. So with that said, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak, Radash, Abad Babal.